Hi everyone, my name is Kaitlyn Byars and I am part of the fifth year alternative program, so I don't have very much teaching class background. My bachelor's degree is in biology, so my teaching field is general science. So that's what I'll be talking to you through, that background today, because that'll be my teaching field. So sociolinguistics, I know it's off to the side, so forgive me if I don't look straight at the camera. Sociolinguistics, addresses the place of language in society, excuse me, and the social context of linguistic diversity. And I think something that really stuck out to me was what Bloom and Green wrote back in '84 was that as a social process, reading is used to establish structure and maintain social relationships between and among people. And as a linguistic process, reading is used to communicate intentions and meanings, not only between an author and a reader, but also between people involved in a reading event. Now, to me, this kind of really hits home, like I said, being in the science field, because it's how most scientists do communicate is written, communication. Any lab report type things, that are submitted, any experimental procedures that are done, any findings are all written and published in journals, and that's how scientists communicate with each other in their community. So I think it's really important that students be able to do that in a science setting in the classroom. So I think that's something to really incorporate. I thought something that would be good with high school students would be to break them up into groups, have them do labs, write up a report just like a scientist would do and submit that for a grade or whatever, and then swap up papers, read each other's reports and learn, well, this is what Johnny and Susie did, and this is what we did, and we got this, and they got that, and this agrees, this doesn't agree. So they're learning more about science, and also there's a whole lot of literacy, in that activity. So I thought that was something that was really, really resonated, I guess, with me in that field. Um, Something too under sociolinguistics that Guy had said was that habits of speech are acquired in early childhood. They're deeply embedded in one's identity and greatly impact one's life path. And this kind of threw a red flag as a challenge because being in secondary education, that's something that, I don't have any say in. My students have already, gone through all this and they kind of know who they are, I suppose, in that speech habit. So while it does throw up a challenge for some students who aren't as strong in that aspect as others, nothing's impossible. Those students would just need a little more attention, in literacy to bring them up to where they needed to be, bring them up to speed. Um, but anyway, another thing that kind of poses a challenge in sociolinguistics was Heath's findings with different backgrounds, different home lives affected how students, um, read and write and all that. And so, it's another thing that we as teachers don't have any control over. We can't control what goes on at home. So that kind of poses as a challenge. But, like I said, that's something that those students who don't have the resources at home and are not quite as strong in literacy, that's just, something that we need to give them a little more time and attention. Now, with sociocultural theory, with the literacy development being understood by exploring cultural, social, and historical context, I thought that Moll's study of bringing in a father of one of his students to come in and speak about, what he did, and then having the students write on it how successful that was like, boom, light bulb. I thought that was a really good idea, just, to get different cultural backgrounds in, and that was something that I would really like to incorporate in my classroom, to have parents come in of different cultural backgrounds and just, talk to students and explain things to them because everything is, different for different cultures. And so not only to give them more of a cultural background, but, again, it boosts that literacy. I also thought it would be really neat, too, being from a science background, to incorporate studying different scientists of different cultural backgrounds. So that way, you have scientists from all over the world of all different cultural backgrounds, and to be able to research those. That way it resonates with all students of all cultural backgrounds, not just, one set thing, not just English, American scientists or African American scientists, but the whole, everybody. So that was something that I would like to incorporate into my future classroom. And social constructivism, where children learn as a result of their social interactions with others. The scaffolding that was mentioned in Vygotsky's research and study and all that was something that really, again, I'd like to incorporate into my classroom with the learning from adults and from more confident peers. Um, having students work in groups to, learn from one another. And if there's a student who doesn't quite understand, if there's a student who understands better, a more confident student, they can help that student, to build them up as long as also accompanying, help from the teacher. So I thought that was something that really, could be easily incorporated into the classroom and also be very effective. So I know I've gone over 5 minutes, so I'm going to sum it up real quick. With the social learning theory, with the behavioral explanation of learning, to be able to observe others, both their successes and failures, and we learn from that. And again, that's a big thing with science experiments. We observe people's successes, and then failures are still documented too. And that's something that students can learn from. They learn from one another. And I would really like to incorporate that into my classroom. So sorry for running over. Thank you for taking the time to listen. Sorry if I stumbled over myself, but I am open to any constructive criticism, and all your comments are certainly welcome. Thank you so much for listening.